Welcome in, my lovely Lovecraftians, to the battle that ended a century. MS found in a time machine by H. Barlow with H. P. Lovecraft. This is, like most battles between two people, H. P. Lovecraft, a reigning champion on this channel, and R. H. Barlow, which could be called an associate or friend, though it is known that H. P. Lovecraft didn't really socialize. Granted, during the times, many didn't. We found comfort in books, writing, parties, and other narratives. So, when these parties would happen, it'd be every once in a while. I digress, though. We're here for the story. So, on the eve of the year 2001, a vast crowd of interested spectators were present amidst the romantic ruins of Cohen's garage on the former site of New York to witness a fistic encounter between two renowned champions of a strange story firmament. Shokan Bob, the terror of the plains, and Knockout Bernie, the wild wolf of the West Shokan. The wolf was fresh from his correspondence course in physical training, sold to him by Mr. Arthur Leeds. Before the battle, the archeries were determined by the venerated Tibius Lama Bil Lumlai, who evoked the primal serpent god of Valusia and found unmistakable signs of victory for both sides. Cream puffs were inattentively vended by Waltz's Birkin, the partaker being treated by the official surgeons, Drs. D.H. Killer and Miss Gin Brewery. The gong was sounded at 39 o'clock, after which the air grew red with the gore of battle, lavishly flung about the mighty Texas slaughter. Very shortly, the final actual damage occurred, the loosening of several teeth, and, of course, both participants, one bouncing out from Wolf's mouth after a casual tap from two guns, described a parabola towards Yucatan, being retrieved in a hasty expedition by Merces, a hijacked barrel in GA Scotland. This incident was used by the eminent sociologist and ex-poet Frank Chimsleep Short Jr. as the basis of a ballad of Portland propaganda with three intentional defective lines. Meanwhile, a pontiff from a neighboring kingdom, the effigy of Acon, also known to himself as the amateur critic, expressed his frenzied disgust of the techniques of the combatants. At the same time, handling photographs of the fighters with himself in the foreground, you could buy at 5 cents each. In round 2, the Shokan Soaker's sturdy right crashed through the Texan's ribs and became entangled in sun-dry viscera, thereby enabling Two Gun to get in several telling blows on his opponent's unprotected chin. Bob was greatly annoyed by the effeminate squeamishness shown by several onlookers as muscles, glands, gore, and bits of flesh were splattered over the ringside. During this round, the eminent magazine cover autonomous Mrs. M. Bloodrage portrayed the battles as a pair of spirited nudes behind the thin veil of comfitry curling tobacco smoke, while the late Mr. C. Halfcent provided a sketch of three chainmen clad in silk hats and galoshes, this being his own original concept of the affray. Among the amateur sketches made was one by Mr. Goofy Hooey, which later gained fame in the annual Cubus exhibit as abstraction of an eradicated pudding. In the third round, the fight grew rough. Several ears and other appendages were wholly or partially detached from the frontier battler by the Shokan Shocker. Somewhat irritated, Two Gun countered with some exceptionally sharp blows, severing many fragments from his aggressor, who continued to fight with all of his remaining members. At this stage, the audience gave signs of much nervous excitement, instances of trampling and gore being quite frequent. The most enthusiastic members were placed in the custody of Mr. Hardy Brabus, the Bullet Hospital for Mental Disease. The entire affair was reported by Mr. W. Labonche Talcum, his copy being revised by Horsepower Hatterat. Throughout the event, notes were taken by Emily Combated Eldritch from 200-volume novel cycle in a Protean manner to be entitled Morning in September, with illustrations by Mrs. Blunger. Mr. J. Watts frequently interviewed both battlers and all the more important spectators, obtaining as souvenirs, after a spirited struggle with the effigy, an autographed quarter rib of 2 guns in an excellent state of preservation, and 3 fingernails from Wild Wolf Lightning. The effects supplied by the electrical testing laboratories under the supervision of H. Cabarrus. The 4th round was prolonged 8 hours at the request of the official artist, Mr. Warner, who wished to put certain shadings of fantasy into his representation of the wolf's depleted physiognomy, which included several supernumerary details supplied by the imagination. The climax came in round 5. The Texas Terror left past entirely through battling Bernie's face and brought both sluggers to the mat. This was adjudged a finish by the referee, Robert F. Corsi, the Muscovite ambassador, who, in view of the Shokan shocker's gory state, declared the latter to be essentially liquidated. According to the Marxian ideology, the wild wolf entered an official protest, which was promptly overruled on the ground that all the points necessary to technical death were theoretically present. The gauntlet sounded a fanfare of triumph for the victor, while the technically vanquished was committed to the care of the official mortician, Mr. T. Barry Quince. During the ceremonies, the theoretical corpse strolled away for a bite of bologna, but a tasteful cenotaph was supplied to furnish a focus of the rites. The funeral procession was headed by a galley bedridden of hearse driven by Malik Toss, the Peacock Sultan, who sat on the box in the West Point, uniformed in turban, and steered an expert course over several formidable hedges and stone walls. About halfway to the cemetery, the cortege was rejoined by the corpse, who sat beside Sultan Malik on the box and finished his bologna sandwich. His ample girth had made it impossible to enter the hastily selected cenotaph. An appetite dirge was rendered by Maestro Singh Lepoto on the piccolo. Missy Terliva Brown and Henderson celebrated awry, Never Swat a Fly from the old canta. Just imagine being chosen for the occasion. The only detail omitted from the funeral was the interment, which was interrupted by the discerning news that the official gate-taker, the celebrated financier and publisher Ivor K. Rodinesc, has absconded with the entire proceeds. The omission was regrettably achieved by Rev D. Best Win, who thereby forced to leave unspoken a long moving ceremony, revised expressly for the celebration from a former discourse delivered at his burial of his favorite horse. Mr. Talcum's report of the event, illustrated by the well-known artist Carlos Ton, who essentially despised the fighters as boneless fungi, was printed after repeated rejections by the discriminating editor of Windy City Grab Bag as a broadside by W. Peter Chafe, with the editorial supervision of Varsvertoten. This, through the efforts of the Otis Admiral Kane, was finally placed on sale in the bookshop of Smearin and Weep, with 3.5 copies finally being disposed of in the lowering catalog described supplied by Samuel Filterus-esque polychromic pages of Worst Weekly American under the title Has Science Been Outmoded? Or The Millers in the Garage. No copies, however, remain in circulation, since all which were not snapped up by the fantastical bibliographies were seized by the police in connection with the liberal suit of the Wild Wolf, who was, after several appeals ending in the World Court, adjudged not only officially alive, but the clear winner of the combat. Such concludes the battle that ended the century. May I just say, that was a difficult read. Where H P Lovecraft seems to over-explain in details and storytelling, R.H. Barlow seems to add a lot of characters that get mushed together with a lot of different words. To sum up the story for those who want to know what's going on, basically, these two were fighting so vividly and so horridly that newspapers, artists, comedians, and even sonnets were writing and describing how the fight made them feel. In the end, the gore was so visceral that it seemed like neither side won, and even the dead body was said to be eating a bologna sandwich, which just seems ridiculous to me. This feels like a very bad game of telephone, but I guess that's what makes the works of H.P. Lovecraft so amazing. They definitely have a lot of love put into them, be it delirium love or be it heartfelt. I, for one, like I said, this was a very difficult read, but I can see how you could take away different possibilities from the book. The book seems to portray that neither person wins in a fight. This would have been popular for the time where there was more wars. I think that this is the artist's way of saying, hey, war has a muddle of names, it has different takes on it, and it doesn't seem like anybody wins except for whoever gets to write the history. They say history does go to the victors. I know that this story can be taken a lot of different ways, and there's a lot going on in such a short story. There's so many names, and all of them seem so unique that it almost felt global to me. That's why I think the battle that ended the century is more so a comical poke at the wars that were currently happening while these authors were alive, as most media from this time was either a comical poke at war, it was either love stories for family, friends, or partners that they'd want to have. Sometimes these stories also could be how they wanted the future to be seen, but usually done in such a light that it's more enjoyable to the masses. I, for one, wasn't a huge fan. I prefer cosmic horror over comedic political horror because there's already enough scary stuff happening with that. But overall, it is nice to get to read all of H.P. Lovecraft's works, and if you're wanting to have all of H.P. Lovecraft's work, hit that subscribe button because we are going through each and every single one, be it poetry, transcripts, or books, or even co-work like R.H. Barlow's and H.P. Lovecraft's. But until next time, bye-bye.